And as we get caught up in the geopolitics of the charges against Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig, we can lose sight of the human element of this story. These are two men being held against their will in less than hospitable detention centers. You can't even imagine what it's like for Kovrig and Spavor unless you've lived it. So let's speak with someones who have firsthand experience. Julia and Kevin Garratt were accused of spying by China in 2014 and held in jail there. They both join us from Vancouver. Thank you so much for being there. I imagine, what you're hearing, in the last few days about what we call the two Michaels brings back bad memories. We've been imagining what it must be like in one of those jails, but you don't even have to imagine. So maybe you can tell us, what were your conditions? Maybe I'll start with you, Julia. What were your detention conditions when you were there?
So the first 6 months, my detention was in isolation in one room with two guards posted inside and the lights 24/7, 6 hours of interrogation a day. And then it moved to stage 2, which was 17 months of somewhat of a house arrest, although I didn't have a house and had to find a place to live alone. And very, very difficult because I still had bodyguards and people outside I had to ask permission for absolutely everything I did. And I just think the whole thing is a road marked with suffering. Yeah. And that's what breaks my heart as I hear this news about the Michaels, because it's a long, hard road marked with suffering, and it's difficult to find the pathway of life in every moment.
Because when you were detained, did you know where Kevin was, how he was? Did you have any news from him?
No, I think that's the worst part, is the complete vacuum that you're in. And the only voices that you hear are the people that are interrogating you or transporting you somewhere. And you don't know where your husband is. You don't really have hardly any information from your family, and just you holding on to a consular visit as a lifeline for some sort of information. And even after Kevin was moved to prison and I was isolated in the city that I lived in, I had no information about Kevin. Every month, the first question I'd ask is he still alive? I really thought, what if he died? Would they tell me? Or would I have to still wait for a consular visit? So it was very, very heart-wrenching, and my heart breaks for their families right now, and the lack of information, which is even worse than maybe what we had. So yeah, the way through is finding your lifeline.
Kevin, I want to ask you the same thing, because you obviously were not detained in the same jail. How were your conditions, and what were they asking you during those interrogations?
During the first 6 months, Julie and I basically shared the same experience. The first 6 months was just kind of tearing apart our lives and getting them to tell who we met on September 12th, 2012, or things like that, and trying to create a case that showed that we were guilty of spying. Although obviously we were not spies, we were there doing aid work and we had a coffee business. But after the 6 months, and after they built a case, seemingly, then I was moved to prison, where there was 900 inmates in the prison that I was in Dandong in China, which is the same prison where Michael Spavor is.
And so were you sharing a cell with many others, or were you in isolation?
No, during those 19 months in prison, I was shared a cell with 14 people. So at first it started at 10 or 12, and then it quickly moved up to 14. They just kept moving more beds in. And during those 19 months, I had about 80, probably 90 people who passed through my cell. Some were there for days, weeks, or months. I was the longest in the cell. And I was in the medical wing, so it was better than some. There's only 2 cells in the medical wing. The other cells would have up to 28 people in the same size cell.
You knew what you were charged with, obviously, with spying, but did you have access to a lawyer? Could you speak to consular officials, or was your situation very similar to the two Michaels?
Similarities to the two Michaels. I didn't see a lawyer the first time until almost 1 year into this, and then I only saw him 2 or 3 times afterwards, including at my trial. I saw him just before the trial, which is a couple days before, and then at the trial, I actually couldn't even talk to him at the trial. It was a closed trial, so only prosecutors and lawyers and some guards and judges were there. But to me, the trial was difficult to even understand what it was.
And Julia, when did you find out that he was okay? How long were you without news from him, wondering whether he was alive or dead?
I mean, it went month by month after the first 6 months. So every month I wondered for the whole month. And then at the end of the month, I'd find out. But then I found out excruciating details about his suffering and the physical pain that he was going through and things like that. And so, for me, it was really a lot of emotional turmoil day by day. And for Kevin, I just could see it that, can he hold on even another month, and trying to get people involved. And everybody was trying their best from the outside, but